Good morning, class. So in the previous class, we have discussed in the growth model, we have discussed about the exponential growth. So in the exponential growth, where the resources are unlimited, right? Now let's second type in the growth model, that is the logistic growth. In the logistic growth, here the resources available are limited. Okay, so here in the logistic growth, here the whatever the resources available to the organisms are limited, and also here, so it is observed naturally in the nature. Okay, in the nature, so this logistic growth is being observed. So this logistic growth, it is also, so the graph of this logistic growth, it is called as a S-shape or sigmoid, or the S-shaped or sigmoid growth. Okay, so logistic growth nalli even the organisms ke resource availability limited ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. Okay, so even the organisms nature nalli available ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. So nature nalli available, nature nalli iruvanತಹ organisms, so ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಗುವಂತಹ resources it will adu limited ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. Okay, so to understand this with the example of a graph, so the resources availability will be less in this lag phase, in this lag period. Okay, so even the graph nalli, so e phase same ide, so this phase it is called as a lag period. In the lag period, the resource availability for the organisms in the nature it will be less. Okay, so as the resources to the organisms when the availability is there, so here the graph it will get increase. So ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ graph ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ increase ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕೆ? Because the organisms is getting the resource from the nature. So as the organism gets the resources, the development it keeps on increases. Okay, so this phase where the increase in the organisms, number of organisms takes place, so this is called as a log period. Okay, so the availability of a resources to the organism, it will be not be constant. At some period the resources gets limited. Okay, so when the resources starts declining, for the availability of resources, when it start declining to the organism, so this phase, okay, so this phase it is called as a period of deceleration. Okay, it is called as a period of deceleration. And now when the resources availability, when it gets limited, the growth of organisms it will get steady. So this one it is a steady growth. So this logistic growth it is being observed in the nature. So starting nalli resource availability iralla, next resource availability aadaga organisms ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಗ್ರೋ ಆಗಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ನಂಬರ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಆ ಒಂದು ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಲಾಗ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್. ಸೊ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಲಿಮಿಟೆಡ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಆಗುತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಫಾರ್ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಡಿಸೆಲರೇಷನ್. ಸೊ ವೆನ್ ದ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಲಿಮಿಟೆಡ್, ಸೊ ದಟ್ growth, okay, that period it is called as a steady growth. So this was in the logistic growth. So the mathematically, so there is a formula for this logistic growth, that is dn by dt is equal to n into k minus n by k. Okay, so this is a formula for the logistic growth. So here so this dn by dt it is the growth rate, and here n represents the natural size of a population. So here where n is equal to, that is population size, it is population size, and here the k indicates the carrying capacity. Okay, k indicates here carrying capacity. Okay, so K indicates the number of organisms in the varying availability of resources. So it is given by K, that is carrying capacity. So this is a formula for it is a mathematical formula for the logistic growth. Okay, so this two type will come under the growth model. So this exponential growth we have already discussed. So it is J shape. Okay, so J shape. So it has been observed in the laboratory condition where the resources are unlimited. But here in the logistic growth, the resources are limited. So this logistic growth generally it is given by the Darwin. Okay, so it is given by the Darwin. That is the fitness of a Darwin. Okay, so this logistic growth is generally said as a fitness of Darwin. So what this Darwin says that more the availability of resources, though more the resources are available, then the organism fitness it will be more. Okay, so it is more fitted to survive in the nature. So that is fitness of Darwin. So this fitness of Darwin in the logistic growth, it is being given in the form of, so it is being given in the form of reproduction. Okay, in the form of a reproduction. So here, in this form of a reproduction, so here, based on this fitness of a Darwin, okay, based on the fitness of a Darwin, so what this Darwin says that is the sum of the organism, so it will reproduce just once in a lifetime. Okay, so even the fitness of a Darwin, it comes under the logistic growth, and the features presented as fitness of a Darwin is that is some organisms will reproduce, it will reproduce once in a lifetime. Okay, once in a lifetime. Okay, so the first point here is some organism it will reproduce once in a lifetime. Okay, okay, for example, here the example you can take it as wheat, rice. For this, the example wheat, rice. So once it gives its product, okay, then the organism again it doesn't gives the rice. Okay, so for example in the rice and the wheat, so this plants it will reproduce just once in a lifetime. Okay, so the next point is there, that is some organism it will reproduce many times in its lifespan. Okay, so reproduce many times in its lifespan. Okay, for this in the plants the example is mango. Okay, so even the mango tree other than the lifetime it will reproduce many times. Okay, and the next point here, some of the organism will reproduce more in number, but the size will be small. Okay, so here reproduce more in number, but the size remains small. Okay, the size it will remains small. And then some so in this again the last point is that the organisms will reproduce less in number, but the size of that organisms is big. Okay, so here reproduce less in number, but the size is, okay, the size of a organism, okay, the size of organisms is big. Okay, Okay, the size of our organisms will be big. For this, the example is we human beings. Okay, human being. So this 4 points, it will come in the fitness of Darwin. Okay, so this fitness is based on the consideration of the available of resources in the given particular nature. Okay, so this in the logistic growth, the fitness of Darwin, so it is in the form of a reproduction. So first point nalli ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, so ಒಂದು ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ ಅದರ ಲೈಫ್ ಸ್ಟೈಲ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೀ ಒಂದೇ ಸತಿ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ ಒಂದು ಲೈಫ್ ಸ್ಪ್ಯಾನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು ಆರ್ಗ್ಯಾನಿಸಮ್ ಇಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ದ ಮೆನಿ ಟೈಮ್ಸ್. ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಸೊ ಥರ್ಡ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ ದ reproduce ಆಗೋದು, so once it reproduce, the number will be more. Okay, but the size of that offspring, it will remain small. Okay, so the last point is that the reproduction is less in number. Okay, so the organisms will reproduce less. Okay, for about 2 to 3 offsprings it will reproduce, but the size of the organisms, it will remain big. For this, the example is human being. So this points will come under the fitness of Darwin, which has been explained in the form of a reproduction. So this all points, it will come under the logistic growth. So logistic growth, it is a type of a growth model. Okay, now next we shall see here, we shall take the next topic. So the next topic is population interaction. Okay, so here next topic, it is population interaction. So in the population interaction, so here how the living organism will interact with the different species. So here we shall study that the interaction between the different species. For this, the first one is mutualism. So population interaction alli first one bandu mutualism. So this mutualism, so it is been represented with the plus and plus. Now let's consider the two different species. Now these two different species are helping to each other. Okay, ಈಗ ಎರಡು ಸ್ಪೀಸೀಸ್ ಇದೆ, ಎರಡು ಸ್ಪೀಸೀಸ್ ಕೂಡ ಒಂದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. Okay, so the one species, let's take this as species A and this as species B. Now the species A is helping to the species B, and species B also it is helping to the species A. Means here what, the two species are helping each other and getting beneficial among each other. Okay, so that one first type in the population interaction, it is mutualism. Okay, so this mutualism, now let's understand with the example. Okay, so here the first example here, it is lichens. Okay, the first example is lichen. So this lichen, it is a association of fungi and algae. Okay, so even though lichen, it is not a single organism, it is a association of fungi and algae. So if fungi inda ee algae ge help agutte, so ee algae inda ee fungi ge help agutte. So yav reetiyalli help agutte. So we know the function of algae, that is it will prepare the food. So algae ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, it will prepare the food. Okay, so ಈ algae prepare ಮಾಡಿರೋ food ಅನ್ನ ಈ ಒಂದು fungi consume ಮಾಡಿ so ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಆ fungi ಈಗ nutrient supply ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Okay, so algae it will prepares the food. So this prepared food it is made used by the fungi as a nutrients. So ಈಗ fungi ಗೆ algae ಇಂದ help ಆಗಿದೆ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ so ಈಗ ಈ ಒಂದು algae fungi ಗೆ food ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ so that is how the fungi will get used. And how does algae will get used from the fungi? What the fungi is doing? What the function the fungi is doing? Okay, so this fungi it will absorb the water. It will absorb the water from the soil and it will gives the shelter. It will gives the shelter, provides shelter to the algae. Okay, so even the fungi, algae food prepare ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ water is a main component, right? So ಆ ಒಂದು water ನ soil ಇಂದ ಈ ಒಂದು fungi absorb ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಈ ಒಂದು fungi algae ಗೆ ಒಂದು shelter ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ ಸೊ ಹಾಗೆ ಈ ಫಂಗೈ ಇಂದ algae ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ algae ಇಂದ fungi ಗೆ ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಸೊ this type it is called as a mutualism. So this where the two different species are getting beneficial to each other, so this one it is called as a symbiosis. Okay, what it is called as? It is called as a symbiosis. So symbiosis means, so here it is a type of mutualism. It is a type of mutualism where both the species gets benefited to each other. Okay, so that one it is called as a symbiosis. Okay, now this was an example in the example 1 of a light. Now let's see the another example here. The example 2, that is mycorrhiza. Okay, example 2 it is mycorrhiza. This mycorrhiza it is being associated with the fungi and the higher plant. Okay, fungi and higher plants. Okay, so now let's see how does fungi will get use of this higher plants and how this higher plant will get use of this fungi. Okay, so same. What the fungi is doing, fungi will absorb the water and minerals over here. So here absorbs water and minerals. Where what the fungi is doing, fungi is absorbing the water and the minerals for the higher plant to perform the function of photosynthesis. What this photosynthesis is doing, what this higher plants, it's what the function it is doing, so that this fungi will get useful from this higher plant. So here it will prepare the food. Okay, so here it will use the it will provide the food for this fungi. Okay, so the functions is quite similar from in the lichens. So in mycorrhiza it is being associated with the fungi and higher plant. So fungi ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ವಾಟರ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮಿನರಲ್ಸ್ ನ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೈಯರ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಗೆ. ಹೈಯರ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅದು ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿರುವಂತಹ ಫುಡ್ ಅನ್ನ ಈ ಒಂದು ಫುಡ್ ಅನ್ನ ಫಂಜೈಗೆ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಷನ್ ಆಗಿ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಫಂಜೈ ಮತ್ತೆ both the higher plants ಮತ್ತೆ fungi ಎರಡೂ ಕೂಡ ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. So this was a second example in the mutualism, that is mycorrhiza. Okay, so now let's see the third example, that is pollination. Okay, so pollination we have already discussed in our previous chapter, that is reproduction in the flowering plant. The pollination is carried out by the pollinators alva. So pollination yaudrinda insects and animals, rain water, so yaudu agent pollination adike help ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. So ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, they call it as pollinator. So in the pollination, the pollinator, so let's take the pollinator as insects. Okay, the pollinator as insects. Now this insect, and let's take a plant, flowering plant. Okay, so here flowering plant. Yes, okay. So here what the insect even the flowering plant help ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. So insect, it is carrying the pollen grains from the male plant to the stigma of a flower, right? So even though ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, insects ಯಾವುದು help ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, so helps in the pollination. Okay, so what is flowering plant in turn, how that it will helps the insects. So this flowering plant, it will provide the food for the insects. So food yavudu idralli, the food will be the pollen grains. Okay, the food it will be the pollen grains. So ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, so insects ಫ್ಲವರಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಗೆ ಯಾವ ಥರ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಪಾಲಿನೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಈ ಫ್ಲವರಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ಸೆಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಆ ಒಂದು ಪೋಲನ್ ಗ್ರೀನ್ಸ್ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ, ದಟ್ ಪೋಲನ್ ಗ್ರೀನ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ದ ಫುಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಇನ್ಸೆಕ್ಟ್. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ವಾಸ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ mutualism with the example. So we have discussed about the lichens. Okay, lichens ನಲ್ಲಿ fungi ಮತ್ತೆ algae. So ಇದೆರಡು ಯಾವ ತರ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. Okay, so next example was mycorrhiza, that is fungi and the higher plants, and the third one is that is pollination. So pollination alli insects pollination ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. So flowering plants ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಆ ಒಂದು insects ಗೆ ಫುಡ್ ಅನ್ನ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. So this was about the mutualism. Thank you.